Hi, I'm Barbara Chris.
And I'm Clarissa,
We're two friends, entrepreneurs, and experts in our field.
joining forces and talking all about life, business, tools for success, and more.
So, without further ado, here's to Dope Women.
Hey, everybody, and welcome back to our podcast, Here's to Dope Women. My name is Clarissa. I am a hairstylist and salon owner here in Southern California. And this is my beautiful co-host, Barbara Chris. She is a nutritionist and weight loss coach. And as you guys can tell from our title, we are here to talk about comparison and how it is actually used in the right way, a good thing.
Yes. Thank you.
Yeah.
So happy to be here.
Welcome.
Episode 4.
Yeah.
Woo! I know. All right. Comparison. Okay. So you said it right off the top. It could be a good thing, but I would say that the majority of people listening in, when they hear the word comparison, what do you think of? Like negative, right? You think negative. Oh, comparison, or just, what was it? What's that saying that you were talking about earlier? Comparison is the
killer of joy.
Comparison is the killer of joy. And what we want to talk about today is that it doesn't need to be that way. We can actually use comparison and make it work for us. Yeah.
Definitely. Yeah. Because I think that there's like two different types of comparison. There's either toxic comparison where there's feelings of jealousy and envy. And then there's also comparison that is actually good and it's constructive and you can use it to learn from others and to build yourself up.
Right. Yeah. It's one of those things where we were talking about earlier and just kicking around this topic where we wanted to share this with our listeners about comparison is that we feel that comparison has actually helped us level up as individual entrepreneurs, helped us level up as even, I think, just women in a lot of different, like more personal areas. And then even as a team, as a partnership in what we want to do. And so maybe one of the first things that we can talk about, because we do have some take-home lessons for you or tips that you can actually start utilizing to really turn comparison kind of on its head when we think about it in a negative way and use it to, like I said, really push us forward. Use it as a good thing, because really comparison isn't good or bad, right? It's really just data. If you look at it with the I should say maybe right mind frame or mindset. It's just data. It's just all in how we look at what we're comparing, look at ourselves, and to how we're taking it all in. Does that make sense? I don't know.
Definitely. Yeah. Let me look it up. I looked up the definition of comparison because everybody always, like you said, everybody always thinks of comparison as a bad thing, but really comparison is definition, a consideration or estimate of the similarities or dissimilarities between two things or people. So you can definitely switch this to where if you're looking at someone and they have what you want, instead of, like I said, the feelings of jealousy or envy or, oh, I'm never going to get those things. You can look at what they have and you can be like, okay, well, I want that. What did they do to get there? Mm-hmm. And so like I said, comparison is really just looking at the similarities and dissimilarities between you and other people, and how it's really just not a bad thing. I think the way that I think that comparison in a way that's negative is just like what I was talking about earlier about how if you're looking at someone and they're super successful, say you have a passion in, I don't know, cooking. I have a passion for cooking, right? Say I want to become a chef, but then I see this person over here and they're super successful and they're, say, in real estate. So if I'm looking at this person and I'm comparing myself to them and I'm like, well, they're super successful because they're in real estate. And then I turn my passion and then I go into their passion of real estate and I start chasing after their dream. I'm no longer chasing after mine. Right. So you definitely have to, like look at apples to apples, right? You have to look at like, okay, if my passion is for cooking, I need to look at chefs and, people who own restaurants. If I want to open up my own, restaurant one day, what do I need to do? So stop comparing yourself to other successful people that are in completely different fields. I feel like if you're just constantly chasing after someone else's dream, your purpose in your life is just, muddied by the waters of, everyday crap that you see on social media. And
Yep. All that input, right? There's so
yeah,
much input that can actually, get in the way. We can actually allow it to get in our way. And I like how you brought up the whole apples to apples, or like the apples to oranges. So for example, and what I like to share, even with my coaching clients, so who are, let's say they're on a getting healthier or weight loss journey. One of the things that can be tough is you compare your wherever you are. Let's say you're starting out, and whether it's social media or friends or family or just anything that you might be comparing yourself to, you have to really be aware to the point where, or aware to the point that you understand that if you're on at the very beginning stages of your journey, that it's not fair to yourself to compare it to someone else who's been, let's say, in the game or on their journey for years. They're way ahead of you. And to compare, let's say, your apple to somebody else's orange, really, for in a lot of ways, is only going to highlight the things that you are missing or lacking. It's almost that instead of highlighting your progress, it's highlighting what you don't have. And that can actually take on, and you can see how comparison can take on more of a negative, like, frame. It's like more negative, like, well, I don't have that. I want to be 50 pounds lighter, or what have you. And so is already, 45 pounds down. Like, what's wrong with me? As opposed to realizing, hey, I'm early in the game. I'm making progress, and maybe I'm only 5 pounds down, but I'm actually kicking butt on the things that I can do day in and day out. So we really have to be careful on when we do compare, if that we're comparing apples to apples, that we're comparing ourselves to people who are inspiring or motivating us, but are relatable too. And that can actually just help us take that next step to level up and kind of, improve things that way. As opposed to thinking, hey, I want to jump from my beginning to, 5 years down the road, I want to be there. I think that many of us, when we've tried to do that, it's really sobering when we see that, man, that's not going to happen like that. I can't just jump from point A to Z, in a snap of a finger.
exactly. Yeah, because I mean, it's just like what you were saying, if you're constantly focusing on what you don't have and looking at what other people do have,
Mm-hmm.
it's, like you bring in the law of attraction. If you keep focusing on what you don't have, that's what you're going to have, instead of flipping the switch, flipping the mindset into, okay, I want that.
Mm-hmm.
How can I get that? And who can I learn from? So
Yep.
if like, say you want to have like a dream body, and you see all these, models on social media. I mean, social media is the worst, but if you see all these models and everybody on social media, you don't know how hard they worked to get to where they are. Like, you just see their highlight reel,
Mm-hmm.
so it's like, you got to know that it takes hard work, and you got to know that, you have your own journey in a way, and you can always get there, but just sitting there and comparing yourself and then not doing anything about it. If
Mm-hmm.
you're just comparing yourself to a model and yet you're sitting on your couch and you're eating potato chips watching Netflix, that's not good. But
Yeah.
if that's actually something that you really truly want, you can look at those women, you can think, let me click on their page, let me see if they have any workout videos that I can go off of, let me see if they have any tips and tricks of what they eat on a daily basis. Or say you're in the gym and you see someone, you're like, dang, that girl looks good, and you're like, you can literally go up to them and say, hey, like, what type of protein are you drinking? Or, hey, what type of, workouts do you like to do? Do you find like you can learn from people instead of sitting back and just comparing yourself to them.
I love that. Okay, the reason why I love that so much is that when you can take, I don't know if you just say, take your ego out of the situation, and ask for help, reach out to people, the people that say you can relate to, that inspire you, that maybe have some of the characteristics that you'd like to really start integrating into your system or your day to day. Reach out to these people, get help. I think that is probably one of the, maybe for today, the top lesson is to reach out and get help. You'd be so surprised when you reach out to someone, for help, that like how happy people are to help. Like, you know, for example, you and I know there's been things where we've reached out to people that we look up towards, and then when people reach out to us as far as like for us to help them, how happy we are to like pay it forward because we know what it's like on both ends. We know what it's like to need to want help, and then now to be able to pay it forward, how empowering and how I know it makes us so excited to be able to do that for other people. But the point of what I'm saying is that when you can just, like I said, take your ego out, take the ego out, realize you need a little bit of guidance, maybe some mentoring, and reaching out to those people who can help you kind of make that next step to level up. It's really an amazing thing that once you realize you're not alone, you don't have to be an island by yourself. You don't have to be looking at other people thinking, well, what are they doing? And, you know, I can't ask them because it's gonna make me seem like I'm less than or weak or what have you. It really is a huge step for you to just go ahead and reach out, get some feedback, ideas, fresh ideas, things that you can do, and then make it your own. But that's really what I want to say. The power of reaching out and getting, whether it's mentorship or coaching, learning, all of that is really going to be in your favor.
Definitely. And there's a level of vulnerability that you have to have in order to do that. You have to kind of humble yourself,
Mhm.
take the ego out, just like you said, and just become more coachable, more teachable, and just become more of a sponge, right? I feel like nobody should ever just think that they know everything or, oh, I'll just figure it out by myself. I
Mhm.
mean, and like you said, like, I love it. There's been people that have hit me up on social media, other hairstylists that are like, hey, where'd you get your chairs, for in my salon? Like, those are so cute. And I'm like, oh, I got it here and this and that. And it takes this long, but I love them and blah, blah, blah. Or, and I'm more than happy to answer
Mhm.
questions or to help. But there's almost like especially with hairstylists, there's almost like this like weird competition that I cannot stand. And I mean, and it's not even hairstylists, women in general. There's like this weird competition. And it's just like, we are all our own people. And just like Nikki said in our last episode, um, Nikki, what's her last name?
Polastrini.
Yeah, she's so fancy. I'm like, I don't even know how
I
to
know.
say it. But yeah,
Yeah.
I mean, she's just like, women are just so powerful and we can learn from each other. And I think that there's just something that's very powerful in that. And when women unite, there's just
Yes.
something that's just so powerful because we all have our own unique personalities and our unique abilities and things like that. I think that's why like we make such a good team is because like whatever I'm really horrible at, you're really good at. And then whatever like you lack, I kind of, make up for it. And
Mhm.
so I think just embracing that and then learning from each other, I like that. I feel like that's why we work so good together. But I think more and more women need to realize that there's more power in uniting and
Mhm.
just coming together and learning from each other instead of constantly comparing ourselves. Because really, there's no difference between you and me. There's no
Yeah.
difference between me and a person who owns, 100 hair salons across the United States. We're all human.
Mhm.
So there's really just, take that like pedestal down and take that person off a pedestal and just realize we're all the same person. We're all human.
Yep. And we've all started somewhere. Our journey, we all started somewhere. So again, whether you're on day two or day 200 or day 2000, what have you, you're right. We've all been there. And you start to realize too that the people who are, let's say, further along the journey, they are more than happy to help and guide because like I said, they've been there. They know what it's like. And you start to find people like who you can relate to. We talked about apples to apples, maybe kind of finding your tribe. And it's not to be like, who can sit at our table. It's not that kind of vibe, but it's really who you can relate to the point where you feel safe enough to be vulnerable to say, hey, these are some of the things that I need help with, because that's not easy, especially for, like you said, women, driven women. It's hard, I think, for anybody to admit the fact that, hey, I might be lacking in this area. That's not an easy thing to do. In fact, even for me, when I, you have to admit to needing help in certain things, I do find it's hard for me to do that. I do it because I know I'll benefit from it, but it takes work and effort, intentional effort to do that. And so when you see that in yourself, whether it's a business you're starting or wanting to start, or a new career or a new nutritional or weight challenge or anything like that, reaching out to someone who can, one, I think inspires you, and can help you and teach you is a huge step. There was so much power in banding together, that you can conquer so much more. I think that for me, when I think back on my life when I, was in the corporate America and, going through a separation, going through divorce, starting a business, there was a lot of me that felt that I needed to figure this out on my own, because I kind of got myself into this mess or what have you, right? And so it's my responsibility to kind of dig myself out. And there was a lot that I learned from that, but I also see though that, if I could have done things, let's say a little bit differently, would have been to maybe reach out a bit more, been a little bit more vulnerable to accept more help from the people, like the core people around me, and not feel so much like an island. That wasn't absolutely necessary. Now I learned from it, but a big lesson, like I said, is that, hey, there's power in really surrounding yourself with good, strong women, that will kind of stick it out with you in your corner and when you're at your lowest. So, well, kind of
Definitely. But no, I feel like that just kind of goes to show that no matter what area in your life it is where where you're lacking, I
Mhm.
mean, there's no shame in saying, oh, I need help. I need help with my mental health. I need help with my health in general. I need help with my diet. I need help with my hair. I
Mhm.
need help starting a business. I need help trying to figure out how to do my taxes. I need help trying to figure out how to start my LLC or
Mhm.
my business license,
Mhm.
right? Like I figured all that stuff out by myself. But then I actually, after I did it, I took a business class where I was like, oh, she's talking about all the stuff that I already did. Like, that's kind of cool. But then there was a lot of more
Yeah.
stuff that I learned from, I think it's just great to have mentors that like there's always something out there that you don't know.
Mhm.
And what's funny is like, there's the things that you don't know. And then there's the things that you don't know that you don't know.
Right.
That's why it's always good to have mentors and take classes and constantly be learning because you're like, oh my gosh, I didn't even realize that was a thing,
Yep.
So
Exactly. Yeah, no, that's huge. That's the one that is a good one. Many times you just don't know what you don't know. And when you're interacting with, other, let's say in our case, other women, or people that can help you, whether it's stepping outside your comfort zone or just bringing up things that you just didn't think of, that is really powerful. And when you start doing these things, you're more open to learning, like you said, you're always remaining coachable. um, that actually does help your self-confidence too,
mhm,
because the more that you can really, I guess, rely on yourself or realize how competent you are in certain areas, and building that, it also builds your self-confidence. And then that in itself allows you, if you are, let's say, comparing or using comparison to help increase your business or your health, what have you, it just becomes, again, it's more data, just more data to build. It's not about how that breaks you down to anything less. It's just that, hey, these are some of the things I can work on, in the near future, and just get that much better.
mhm.
That's the difference between when we say comparison. It's actually a really good thing. We can really use it to propel us forward and really step into all those things that we know we deserve, and we have the potential for. That's what it's about.
Definitely taking the competition out of comparison
Hmm.
you can learn a lot. If I'm looking at another business owner and
Hmm.
I'm comparing and almost trying to be competing with that person, there's no room for me to learn.
Hmm.
So if I just take that competition out of the comparison, I can look at this woman and I can be like, what can I learn from her? And I think one of the biggest things that I kind of wanted to get across in this podcast was stop looking at other people with jealousy and envy of what they have. And
Hmm.
if you want what they have, then learn from them.
Hmm.
That's
Yep.
just the biggest thing. And I mean, going back to, I guess, social media, if you're constantly looking at other business owners who maybe they're just kind of, showing off and things like that, maybe don't follow them. Follow
Mhm.
more business owners that are giving out tips and tricks and things that they learned, and they're more educational and motivational,
Mhm.
just change your feed and change your, the people that you're following, and the things that you're looking at. Limit your time on social media.
Yeah.
I think that's a big thing too. Sometimes if I take like a little vacation and you kind of humble yourself and you kind of bring yourself down and you're like, okay, like this is reality here, what's right in front of me.
Mhm.
And I think it just really kind of clears your mind. And I think it's just people spend a little too much time on social media,
Yeah,
myself included.
yeah. Oh, I think we all fall into that. I mean, I notice it too, and it's so interesting that there are times I can do the scroll, and it doesn't really impact me. But let's say I'm having a hard day. It's been a rough week or what have you. I'm struggling, and I get on my feed and social media, and that feed can have a totally different impact on my mindset that day. It can make me feel more down or depressed because you're right. It is a highlight reel. And if all I'm seeing are all these highlight reels and I'm feeling right now, God, I'm struggling right now. That's probably the last thing I want to see right now at that moment. What I need is, okay, what are some things that I know I can do to really help boost me up in that moment? If I were to say scrolling through social media, probably not it. Would it be getting outside, getting a half hour walk in, maybe some exercise? That would probably be a lot more productive for me. The comparison part at that specific point in time, not so much. And so exactly like you said, Clarissa, is that we really have to be accountable for ourselves too, and be aware of how we're responding to certain things, whether it's your social media feed, whether it's maybe even people around you. What do they bring to the table for you in general? Then at that moment, are they bringing out feelings of, you know, uh, anxiety, feeling like you're bummed out or what have you? Or is it more uplifting and inspiring? That's where you want to see if you can spend majority of your time with and around those types of inputs, whether it's people and or social media. And it'll change with time, especially as you evolve. You'll find that, maybe what you followed in the past maybe aren't so inspiring for you anymore. And it's your right to follow and unfollow as for what serves you best. I think we really have to be in tune with that, and really listening to ourselves and how that feels in our heart and our soul. With how we're responding to all of those things, we really need to be aware of those things.
Yeah. And I mean, I definitely want our listeners to know that it's a little bit easier said than done, because I think it's just a very natural thing is to
Hmm.
compare, and kind of, you always kind of, I think it's natural for negative feelings to kind of come up. I think it's definitely our responsibility to ourselves, to love ourselves, to know that, okay, I'm getting into these negative thoughts. I need to stop and I need to kind of backtrack, and I need to kind of switch that and correct it. I think that's a big thing. And it's like I said, it's easier said than done, because I think it's, unless you're like someone who's like this crazy high level person, like I think everybody just has those negative thoughts every now and then.
Yeah.
So it's easier said than done, but it's definitely doable to where you can kind of notice, okay, I'm noticing that I'm comparing in a negative, in a toxic way. What can I do to kind of change this around? And look at someone and be like, oh, okay, oh, I can learn this from them, or oh, I see how they're doing this in their business. Maybe how can I switch that around and implement it into mine?
Right. No, I love that. In fact, we put together some tips, right? Or you have some tips as far as things that can kind of help turn that around. Maybe we should start with the first one. What's our first tip for turning that comparison from maybe more of a negative thing to something that you can use and it's more of a positive way?
Well, I think like what you said is just reaching out to people
Hmm.
and seeing, if you have a question, like don't be afraid to reach out and just ask them like, hey, in whatever it is, whatever your business is, like,
Yeah.
what booking app do you use, or what type of protein do you use? I
Hmm.
think that's something that, people, bridging that gap in
Yep.
between someone that you you see as kind of higher than you, and
Mhm.
just bridge that gap and make yourself kind of on the same playing field.
Right. A good example for that too, what I bring up when I ask you that question is, so for example, I'm a nutritionist and weight loss coach, and I know a lot of other coaches. And many of those coaches that I interact with, they've either, they've been coaching as long as me, maybe some longer, and there's quite a few who are just starting out. And so they'll reach out to me and they'll, a lot of the questions that they have are, well, how did you build your client base, or how do you go about building your social media? Because I feel like I just don't even know where to start. I'm struggling right now. I just, everything feels so overwhelming. And so it's so interesting because I know exactly how they felt. Like I know
Hmm.
exactly how that felt, where everything I wanted to do, everything all at once. I wanted to have the client base. I wanted to have my social media figured out. I wanted to know what my form should look like, my intake, all of that. I wanted it done all at once. And what I'll tell them is I'll say, look, it's definitely something, this is going to be like learning in progress. And what I would share with them is that, in order to really kind of step into this role, there's a lot of things that you need to work on as far as building your self confidence. I want to actually give you the definition of self confidence. So, self confidence is courage to know yourself, belief in yourself, and act on your beliefs. And so, what I'll tell like these people that come to me, these new coaches, I'll say you need to start doing things that'll really start building that self confidence as a coach. Do the things that when you look at a coach that you admire, what are they doing? Well, they're coaching people, they're sharing tips, they're sharing their knowledge. I was like, okay, well, what can you do today to start doing that? Can you maybe start coaching family members or friends that, that maybe right now you have to give them a deal or do it for free just to get into that practice. Start doing that. Start doing those things that you admire and other coaches, and then just really start practicing that, and you'll find the more you do this day in and day out, it builds out that self confidence. And then like you said, it can build you to the point where you might even feel more confident to reach out to, say, other coaches and see what they're doing to grow. It really just starts with that little step, even starting with the people around you. Like I said, coaching the people around you, your friends, your family, maybe even your significant other. Start close to you, build that self confidence and that belief in yourself so that you can start to expand that circle more and more. Yeah.
Definitely. Yeah. No, I think that's big because I mean, who else are you going to really learn from other than, the people that you kind of see yourself, you have the connections with. That's why it's really good to build those connections with people who are like-minded, who are doing the same things that
Mhm.
you want to do. Um, but yeah, once again, there's a level of vulnerability that you have
Mhm.
to kind of, I mean, that's kind of hard for me to like reach out to people, but I've done it before because I'm just like, what's the
Yeah.
worst that they could say? Like F off,
Yeah, exactly. And I
you
think
know?
we've found, even as women, when we interact with other women too, it's always it's so exciting because I would say every single time we've reached out and talked and networked with other women, they're always excited to band together and learn from each other. Every
Mhm.
time there's like that competition stuff, it's like out the window. At least in our experience. I know it's not always the case, but sometimes you just have to take that little risk. It's worth it. It's worth it.
Mhm. Yeah. I think another takeaway for people, another, tip, with just social media in general is just, um, unfollowing people that you feel, those feelings of jealousy or envy, if they're not adding any kind of value to your life, education wise, or how to get to where they are, just unfollow them, turn off your notifications. If you feel like you're, spending too much time on social media, I mean, I swear every time I get like a notification, someone liked your photo, I'm like, oh, which photo? Like, and then I'm just like on social media now,
Mm-hmm.
just checking one notification, and it's like,
Mm-hmm.
turn off your notifications. um Basically, like, just kind of set yourself up for the future. Turn off your notifications, unfollow people who don't inspire you, follow people that inspire you and motivate you and educate you to do better. So I think just like, how do I say, mold your social media to what you want it to be, and it's not something that's going to be negative or time consuming.
That's a good one.
Yeah.
I really like that because it also feeds into, I'm thinking of knowing how to, so you have a goal and knowing how to maybe dose it out. Does that make sense? So for example, let's say you're starting a business. I know we were talking about this before too. You're starting a business and right now you're working from, your parents' basement or your small apartment or what have you, very beginning phases. And your goal is to have this, humongous company. And on your vision board, you have things that are, you have a full building, maybe the car your dream car, Ferrari, a yacht, a huge house on the beach. That's great. I mean, I think that I think that we always should have goals that we're striving to. However, when I talk about dosing it, is that if you're at the very beginning stages, having a vision board with those things that are, let's say, years and years out, might not be conducive to, bringing out positive feelings. It might bring out more of the feelings of without or the lack of that you don't have any of those things. And so more likely than not, that can actually maybe cause depression or frustration. So maybe more of a proper dosing of things like your vision board. So maybe the next step would be you'd have your own office somewhere. That would be on your vision board. Or maybe not the Ferrari, but maybe something, next level up. Or, maybe not the house on the beach, but maybe now I moved out of my parents' basement, or maybe now I'm in a bigger apartment or an apartment closer to where I wanted to be, more realistically set and dosed goals and visions that you can work towards. Because when you see it like that, you actually feel like, hey, I can actually do that. And when you compare, let's say, to someone who has their own office versus office buildings, that person would be a lot more relatable to you and maybe can help you get there versus thinking of, like a Bezos or something, right? I think like hell, I'm so far from that. I'm not even in the same field as them. But get in the same playing field as somebody else, even if they might be, further along the way, they might be heading into home base and you're just kind of running into first base. Hey, whatever, that was a good analogy. That at least you're in the same playing field and you can relate and they can help you and you can help each other. That's what I meant
Definitely.
by kind of dosing out your vision board, dosing out those big goals so that you can actually take chips at it along the way and feel like you're making progress. That will make the comparison a lot more positive than a negative thing.
For sure. Yeah, because you're looking at things that are a little bit more attainable. Not
Mhm.
to say that these huge goals and that mansion and the Ferrari are not completely unattainable, because like I said before, those people that have those things are humans just like us. They started
Yep.
out somewhere just like us. Not to say that we can't get there,
Mhm.
and not to say that those dreams aren't attainable, but
Mhm.
definitely if you're looking at a mansion and a Ferrari, and if you're in your parents' basement and you can't even afford a cup of coffee,
Yeah.
then if you're looking at a mansion and a Ferrari, you're just going to just keep thinking about how, like, oh, how far-fetched that is. Like, oh, maybe in 20 years from now. It's not motivation. It's not going to motivate you,
Mhm.
because you're looking at the big picture as opposed to, okay, what are the little things that I can start doing
Mhm.
to get there? What can I
Yep.
do to move out of my parents' basement? What can I do to buy my first house? What
Mhm.
can I do to, like maybe have a rental property or something to have more passive income, so that way you can, have multiple streams of income, so that you can eventually get to the point where maybe you can have your mansion and your Ferrari.
Yeah.
It's those goals that are on your vision board that's going to get you to where you really
Yep.
truly want to be.
Amen to that. Yes, absolutely. We are at 100% behind the big dreams and the big goals and going after those wholeheartedly. We 100% support that. We just also want to be smart about it. And being smart about it means that it's going to come in pieces. And whether it's a business dream, entrepreneurial dream, a weight loss dream, even with my weight loss and nutrition clients, let's say they do have a long-term goal, they want to lose 100 plus pounds. Well, that's amazing. I know 100% I am all in with them, but we're not going to focus on that, the 100 plus pounds weight. We're going to be focusing on that 5, that 10, because it's going to take 5 before we get to 10. It's going to take 10 before we even get to 15. And even though it might seem in the grand scheme of things, that's only 10 pounds. But you know what? 10 pounds is a hell of a start. And we have to go through all of those steps to get to the big thing. And like you said, just that progression, those little steps along the way, they are so empowering and powerful. They feed into our self-confidence. They feed into even our self-esteem, all of those things that will keep us going and pushing for those big goals so that we can get to that, whether it's the house on the beach or the Ferrari or whatever, the buildings and buildings of, that's filled of your, with your business. It'll eventually get there, but we have to start and we have to take action today and tomorrow and Thursday,
Yeah.
And those are the things that are going to just keep us going. And if we can use comparison dosed out in a really mindful way, we can actually use that to empower us to just propel us forward. And that's what we want for you guys, for all of our listeners.
For sure. Yeah. I mean, if you kind of, if you look at it from a hairstylist perspective, I have clients that come in all the time that have these pictures of what they want, right? They're not sitting there going, oh, but my hair is dark and I really want to be blonde. They're looking at that picture as it's called an inspo pic. It's called an inspiration picture. And that's what I have to keep reminding my clients of. Okay, so we can get there, but let's start today and let's see how far we can kind of get you to that inspiration picture, and we can kind of go from there. So they're not looking at that picture in a negative way, comparing themselves. They're looking at that picture as an inspiration. That's exactly what a vision board is it's a vision of inspiration to where you can look at that and be like, okay, that's what I want. What can we do to get us there? So that's literally what I do all day with my clients.
Yeah.
Just looking at these pictures and saying, okay, what do you like about that? What do you like about that? Let's go ahead and let's start our own journey to get there.
Yeah. And what a really fun place. And I think even exciting place and platform that you have to do that, to help people like step into all these things that they wish for themselves. And I feel like that as a coach too, that's one of the parts that I love about it so much, is that when people come to you and they have, hey, I have this inspiration of doing this, and then you can help them, guide them, walk them, through that to get there. It is such an amazing thing to be a part of. And I think that's why I just love this whole dynamic of, whether we're podcasting or, creating our women's network and really helping women step into that potential that they know that they're capable of, and that they deserve. That is just, for me, even I'm sitting here thinking of that. I'm like, oh my gosh, that is like, it's just so exciting. I'm so excited for all of this.
Right.
Yeah.
And like you said earlier, when we were talking before we hopped on here, it's really just about the journey, because you can look at that picture, but it's about helping people and about the process of going through these things to get to where we want to be, is really like where we should really just enjoy the process.
And 100, yes. Yeah. Enjoy the process. Give yourself grace, that knowing that wherever you are on your journey is exactly where you need to be. The fact that you're on a journey is a huge, huge accomplishment, that you're even embarking on something that's requiring you to step out of your comfort zone, whatever it might be. That is a huge accomplishment right there. So, give yourself grace and understanding and the empathy, really the empathy that, you have. If you have a ways to go, that's awesome. That just means you have so much more to gain, so much more to learn. And the more, like we said at the top of this podcast, the more that we can take the judgment out of, comparison of, comparing yourself to other people, processes, what have you. If we can take that judgment out and really just take that data in to help us just improve and better ourselves, oh man, you will be unstoppable, completely unstoppable. So
I love the way you put that.
Oh, thank you.
Just taking out the judgment. I think everybody's just a little too hard on themselves.
Yep.
You know, if you have a hard day and you didn't get anything done that day towards your goal, it's fine. Just wake up tomorrow and keep making those goals, keep writing down your goals. I think another tip that we should do that we should incorporate in here is the vision board. I think that
Yeah.
that's definitely, instead of comparing yourself to everybody on social media, you
Hmm.
know, look at really what you truly want in your journey and your life, not what other people want, and put that on a vision board. And then that way it'll just look at it every day and think about those steps that you can do to kind of get to where you want. And yeah, just take the judgment out of it, I think is
Yeah.
the way that you put that is really powerful.
Thank you. And along with that, list out the things you've accomplished along the way to take credit for those big steps that you took. A big step could have been reaching out to get help. When you were able to check that box and you got help, that's a big step. Take credit for that. If a goal of yours is to be consistently or exercise consistently and you've done a week straight, take credit for that. That is amazing. Yes, the vision and the inspiration, that's very important too, to kind of keep you going on that moving in that direction. But acknowledging the fact that you are actually on path and you're on track is a really good thing to make sure that you're recognizing as well. That, hey, I'm putting in the work, and I'm enjoying the process and I'm learning from it and I'm checking these boxes. That is worth something too. And we definitely can't go without pointing that out too. Really
Yeah.
important to track that.
Yeah, really just getting out of that scarcity mindset
Mhm.
of, you know, the lack of what you have,
Mhm.
and just appreciating and having gratitude for, you know, where you've been and where you're going and the things that you're doing now is, I think that's really powerful for sure.
Yeah. I think back and lessons learned through life, whether it was like professional, personal, I can think of so many in my mind, like, wow, so many different, train wrecks that I've been in and the things that I've learned from that. But, I wouldn't be who I am today without those things. And so sometimes we are so hard on ourselves for the struggles that we've, or that we're going through right now. We could be going through a struggle right now. And I think if we're all being completely transparent here, people could read our minds and see, hey, what are they struggling with right now? Every single one of us is struggling with something right now. And it's really easy to get fixated and think of, man, this really sucks, and I really am hating where I am with this particular thing right now, which I get, and we all understand, and we can all relate to that. And then maybe something to just kind of keep you going forward and maybe feeling a little bit more hopeful is that there will be one day, and you can even say this to yourself, I look forward to the day, to the time when I can look back at that moment and realize how much I learned from that, and how much better off I am for learning that lesson and sticking it out and pushing forward. That day will come. And even
Mm-hmm.
though, like I said, right now might feel like it's not there, it'll come. You just got to keep pushing, taking that next step forward. You got this.
Mm-hmm. That's great.
Yeah.
Wow. You're so motivational, Barbara.
Well, thank you. Well, thank you. And so are you.
Yeah.
Like I said, like we definitely complement each other in so many different ways. And I think like we just make ourselves better for that. And like again, the more we can embrace that, just be okay with understanding that, hey, we're always learning something. We don't know everything. And
Mm-hmm.
we can just band together and help each other. What that is that's a what much better way to move through life than little islands by themselves.
And just getting out of that victim mentality of like everything's happening to me and not for me. You know, what can
Yeah.
I learn from this situation instead of just, you know, crying and thinking that life is out to get you.
Yep.
Because if you keep going into that, like I said, the law of attraction, if you keep, you know, thinking that bad things are always happening to you and, oh, I can never be successful in it, that you're literally setting yourself up for failure because that's
Mhm.
just what you're constantly thinking about. So yeah, getting yourself out of that victim mentality and just, you know, just constantly being a sponge and learning from each thing that you're going through is really, I think, where it's at.
Yeah. And for me, and I think about this is interesting that so right now we're taping episode 4 as our first episode is dropping. So our premiere episode drops today. And I share that because we talk about comparison, and if we're thinking about comparison to, let's say, podcasters who've been doing this for years and have millions of followers and downloads and all of that, and that could easily get in our way of starting something new, that's, even though we're passionate about it and we have so much to share. When you're new at something, it's scary. And I just think that how awesome it is that here we are, our first episode's dropping, we're taping our fourth. And you know what? 6 months ago, would I think we would even be here? No, but we dosed down our goal and started breaking it down, saying, this is what we can do to get to where we want, let's say in 2 years, 5 years, what have you. But we're going to start taking these steps. We're going to use some of the information from podcasters and people that we love and inspire us, and let's make something our own. And here we are, like I said, talk about taking credit for progress, on the way, checking off episode 4, season 1. Here's to dope women. Shoot.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, that's great. I'm so proud of where we've been and where we're going. And I think that, if one person listens to this and gets something out of it, I think it's totally worth it.
Absolutely.
For
And
sure.
and if anyone's listening to this and they're thinking of the same thing, like, yeah, I've been wanting to start my own business, or I've been wanting to start my own podcast, or I've been wanting to do whatever, start my own salon or open my salon, like what Clarissa did. I hope that this inspires you, one, to keep listening in and getting help from us or inspiration from us, but even to reach out. If you're listening to this podcast, whether it's on, on YouTube or on Instagram or the different podcast platforms, reach out to us. We would love to hear from you and hear if what you learned from this, and or if there's any topic in particular that you'd like us to touch on. We would like to hear that too. So we really want to bring all that for you, to help you grow and really just be one dope ass woman.
Yeah. I love that.
Yep. So I don't know, any closing words? Do you have any closing thoughts, quotes, what have you, that you want to share with our amazing followers that are growing?
No, I think I just feel like my biggest takeaway is really just not looking at other people and their success as something that's totally unattainable, because if you see someone that is doing what you want to do, that's just proof that it can be done. Mm-hmm. And you just have to have the belief in yourself that you can get there. You just have to put in the hard work.
I know. And I'd leave on that note. I love that. So, and I would say along those lines, if I had to kind of like tap in, or not tap into that, but kind of add on to that, I would say, as far as comparison, would really be to make sure that whoever it, or who and whatever it is that you're looking towards and being inspired by, just like you said, kind of take that as a grain of salt. Don't use that as some kind of measure of where you are. Has no impact on your worth. The success or the height of success of other people or other things has no impact on your own worth. So if someone else that is doing great, that's great. It doesn't take anything away from what you're doing. Just, really be confident and own your journey, own your process, and really focus on that. Try not to get caught up in all the other things that other people are doing. Use that to help propel you, to inspire you, but don't let it take away from, the worth of what you're doing. That's my ending note.
That's great. Amazing. Amazing. Well, I hope everybody learned a little something from this episode. Mm-hmm. I think this is like one of my favorite episodes. I feel like we really, I don't know, it was just very on the spot. And I think I think it'll help a lot of people. I hope it will.
Yeah, I do too. It felt very natural. Like we said, all those times that we would sat in having coffee together or in your chair talking for hours and just sharing our insight, it felt like that. So it felt very natural and authentic. So like you said, I hope you all got something from this.
Yeah. And hopefully you guys subscribe
Mhm.
and check us out on Instagram. Here's to Dope Women.
Mhm.
And I think we can just leave it off at that.
Yeah. Until next time, we'll
Yep.
see ya.
Bye, guys.
Bye.